Hey guys, welcome to my video. This is me doing a breakdown of the trade between eUnited's former mid laner Venenu versus Space Station Gaming's former mid laner Baskin. The trade, and mostly I'm going to break it down by the numbers. The one thing I do want to say before I even start pulling out numbers is that these two players are very similar just by the way that they play and their roots in history. Both of them were side laners. Venenu originally was a hunter. Baskin, originally a solo laner, that made that transition into the mid lane. And honestly, both of them did it very fantastically. Both of them really like their hunter players as well. Baskin's definitely a little bit more flashy whenever you can see him play. He really puts himself out there trying to make those flashy highlight plays. And sometimes that kind of comes back and bites them in the ass. And we're going to just take a quick look on the two differences, the two side-by-side comparisons. This is Season 4 and Season 5, Venenu and Baskin. Now, keep in mind that Venenu was formerly, into the beginning of Season 4, he was in the Challenger Cup with Oxygen Supremacy. So some of these numbers might be a little bit skewed, but Season 5 was all United. So the one key thing that I wanted to point out by these numbers is how similar their KDAs are between both Season 4 and 5. But then the biggest difference is obviously the average time spent dead. And my conclusion on this is simply because Baskin will put himself out there more, trying to be the flashier player. And a lot of this has to come down to the ranked mentality. The way that Baskin got picked up by Cloud9 back in Season 2 was the fact that he was destroying everybody in ranked. It was just not even close. In the solo lane, he was the person to beat, and not too many people could beat him day in and day out. Venenu, he got into his start, I believe, in Season 3 with Team Allegiance, getting picked up by Weekend and crew. And then since the downfall of that team, after I think he got removed, or like at the beginning of the fall split, then that's when he started going into the Challenger Cup with Kiki, Skilladon, and company as well. And they had a great run, which I'll break down a little bit later as it comes. So you can see the difference between the average time spent dead alone. A whole about minute 10, minute 20 seconds between the two. That just means that Veneno is a little bit more calculating about how he approaches certain encounters and engagements, and he's not willing to risk his own life for the play. If it doesn't happen naturally, he's not going to force it. Whereas Baskin, he's very skilled, but at the same time, he could be a little bit jaded slash bored to the point where he needs that excitement. He's like an adrenaline junkie, so he will put himself out there knowing that this 20 to 40% success rate play could potentially happen, but that same 20 to 40% could mean his death. And it's happened from time in and time out, specifically during the summer LAN. If you guys were paying close attention to Baskin's positioning, it was not pretty whatsoever. So these were just a little quick tip ends just to see how they are by the numbers. Now, the one thing also that we have to discuss is obviously the two achievements. When we say which team got the better end of the trade, was it eUnited now that they have Baskin, or is it going to be Space Station with Venenu? Well, let's take a look at their achievements. This is Baskin's achievements. It's a pretty large list, honestly, since he got picked up by Cloud9 in Season 2, replacing Omega at the time. Him and Cloud9 never could really find that hump over Epsilon at the time. It was just too difficult for them after they finished 3rd and 4th place at Season 2 Worlds. And ever since then, realistically, Baskin hasn't really won anything at LAN. Like, the best thing that he's ever won was Season 2 Super Regionals. And since then, in Season 3, he joined Sword Gaming. He kind of left Cloud9 in the dust. Anister joined him as well. Things were kind of slipping and falling for him ever since then. Overall, if you take a look, there's 5 gold placements there. But the only thing that I'm really seeing that means a damn is that Season 2 Super Regionals. And that's been almost 3 years ago since he actually won something that's worth anything. And if you take a look at Venenu's achievements over here, specifically, his achievements is a little bit shorter on the list because he hasn't been around as long as Baskin has. But at the same time, it's very respectable. He has 4 gold achievements thus far, and 2 of them really stand out. First one, obviously, being winning Worlds in 2018, being the MVP of Worlds as well, mind you. There's a reason why he was voted for the MVP, and he got that. And then, obviously, winning Super Regionals of 2018, or 2017 at the time, as well. So those were his two best achievements thus far. And honestly, the way he plays, when I look at these two players side by side between Venenu and Baskin, this is where my opinion is starting to show and not by the numbers. You could definitely tell the aura that Baskin brings to a table is like, I'm going to outplay you and I'm going to try to, win it with my play. Whereas Venenu is very relaxed, very just patient about letting the plays happen naturally and unfold. If you take a look at the games, you'll definitely notice that. And what I wanted to pinpoint was the Season 4 Oxygen Supremacy run that Venenu had. This was during the spring gauntlet of Season 4. It was Kiki, Skilladon, Venenu, and then two other names that I'm completely drawing a blank on. I think it was Niruma was there, and I think Data Remember was there as well. Yeah, Data Remember. So those were your 5 players in that. And something that I want also to point out was these games, this was, I believe, Venenu's, first best land. Season 3 during ALG, when he came in for the group lands, didn't have the best performance in the world, but he grew so much from then. And the reason why I'm pinpointing this specific LAN in the side-by-side comparison is just chemistry and synergy. Being able to go on a very impressive 7-2 run is no easy task by any stretch. These players in the SPL, day in and day out, will play anywhere between 6 hours of Day of Smite till about 12 hours a day of Smite, depending on what's coming up in the competition. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily just playing Smite. That also means VOD review, watching other players stream, learning what they're doing, playing your own ranked games, playing on a Smurf casually, playing scrims, jousting, other game modes. They will do anything that it takes to, continue to get their mechanics still fluid. You gotta put oil in the engine, and that's exactly what these players are doing. And this, not too many players, let alone a full 5-man unit, can make this kind of a run that Oxygen Supremacy did. Beating out Flashpoint, beating out Noble, Allegiance, beating, in memory of Gabe in the first game, but then losing the last two. And I think that's kind of when they ran out of steam. They played, collectively, I have it written down here, 257 minutes and 13 seconds of game time for these 9 games. And then, that doesn't include the breaks that they had to go on. That doesn't include analysis breakdown that us as the casters had to fill in the time. And he played 5 different gods in 9 different games. Vulcan, Thoth, Chiron, Scotty, and Zhang Kui. And so every other game, he's playing something new, something different, keeping the enemy on his toes. Had a very impressive KDA in a lot of his games. It's just an overall sick transition between Season 3 and Season 4. It's very, you can make a connection between Cyclone GG Season 3 versus Rival Season 4, between Venenu Season 3 and Venenu Season 4. It's just leaps and bounds. It looks like a completely different player. And that's why, just based off of some of these numbers and statistics, and obviously the Oxygen Supremacy run showing how much chemistry that Venenu and the rest of his team had, it leads me to believe that Space Station Gaming got the way better end of this trade for the long term. Now, I don't think that this is going to change anything in the North American side. I still think that United and Space Station Gaming are going to be your number 1 and 2 teams. But I think Space Station Gaming should be the number 1 North American team from now on. Obviously, both of these teams are struggling against Europe, so that needs to change very quickly if they ever actually want to win a LAN again. United showed up in Season 4 Worlds when Europe was dominating, so who knows? That could change very easily in this next upcoming HRX, November 16th through 18th. Get your tickets now at HiResExpo.com, #plug. But yeah, I think that Venenu is going to be the easier fit for this team than Baskin will into United. This is where my opinion is starting to show off. And something I also wanted to point out was something that Bera said in his video. I will quote it word for word. I have it written down here. During spring and summer, this is Bera, personalities were clashing. People weren't getting along as people should have been. Team morale and overall team environment wasn't that great. I think he, Baskin, gets along with all the personalities on E United way better than how he gets along with our personalities. So that alone leads me to believe that there's been drama, whatever you want to put it. Just wasn't a natural fit. There wasn't that chemistry, and that's why I look back to this specific run with Venenu and Oxygen Supremacy. If you ever spoken to both Baskin and Venenu, they're both really cool guys in person and stuff, but a lot changes behind the scenes. You don't really know how players act necessarily, and I think that since Baskin kind of got his start in Cloud9, like his real start, he was in denial before, that doesn't really count. But since his start in Cloud9, I think he got a little jaded, and I think that he might be a little bit demoralized to the point that, you know, his team in Season 2 was almost destined to win Worlds again until they got kind of cock-blocked by Epsilon. And I think that he's been not second-guessing himself, but I think that sometimes he's putting blame on other people, almost to a fault. And I think that's the reason why that he couldn't get along with Space Station Gaming for the long haul. And that's why he left in Season 2, and that's why he's making this change yet again here in Season 5. Not much has changed since that time. I think Venenu, both of them are very young players, by the way. I think they're like around 18, 19 each, somewhere along those lines. And I think that they both have a great, you know, just a future ahead of them, whether they keep playing Smite professionally, other games, whatever they decide to do. But I think personalities come into a big factor. I still believe that Venenu is going to be the better fit for the fall split for Space Station Gaming, and we'll see what happens from there. This has just been a simple by-the-numbers comparison. Very similar players, like I said. I'll put up the side-by-side comparison again. Like, this is Season 4 and Season 5, Baskin versus Venenu is very similar versus GPM, KDA, First Bloods. You can kind of make that comparison, showing that Baskin likes to be a little bit more aggressive at times, but that also hurts him to the point that he has that longer average time spent dead. Hope you guys like this video. I'll be sure to do more of these in the future. And until then, guys, peace, love, and happiness. Stay safe out there.